invest in ourselves. We all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie here at Black Star Network. Oh my goodness, I love our audience and our panel that we are going to have today. Seriously, when I think about all of the change and transition that is happening in each of our lives, one of the things that comes to the forefront of my mind is back to school and how we're handling it. Sure, so many of you are in different spaces and time, and you're wondering how to manage and master and harness the power of your emotions, just thinking about your kids getting ready to go back to school. And then for some of you, you simply decided we're all done, we're tapped out, and you're going to homeschool your kids this year. Whatever it is it looks like for you, we're going to take the time to really lay out, plan out, and discuss how to deal with those social and emotional feelings that our children are having. How are they coping with the pandemic? So many kids missed out on being able to go to school. And so they're having to play, if you will, catch up with getting to know friends, what it means to be in an environment that's not your own home or your grandparents' home. So let's jump right into it because, back to school is serious business. Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Hey there, Dr. Jacquie.
Oh my goodness, let me tell you, I'm excited when we get together because I always feel like there's going to be this dynamic, robust conversation that's going to happen. And, we're right in the middle of summer. And parents are already in this space of saying, what are we doing for the rest of the summer with our kids, while also trying to balance their own personal emotions and feelings about sending kids back to school as we see numbers rising, as mask mandates are, they're all over the place, and all over the globe. It's like, are the masks on? Are the masks off? Can they have it if they want to? Will they be get sent home if they do or if they don't? And so there's just a lot of feelings and emotions, right now tied into where we are in this pandemic. And I think that's a good place for us to start our conversation before we move into some other topics. How are each of you feeling about where we are in this space and time? And how are you personally managing going in and out and deciding to or not to as it relates to these various variants that we're seeing right now? I'll start with Charlotte Avery. Hey, Char.
Hey there. So, for my family, we love summer and we are an out and about family. And so we're out. I mean, the kids are out playing with their friends and neighbors and all the things. And, we're going places and doing things. So, when it comes to wearing masks and things of that nature, if we're going inside and we know we're going to be around a lot of people, then yes, we mask up. But if we're outside, if we're going to the pool, or anything like that, we're not wearing masks, and we're okay with that. But I'm just happy. I mean, I know that there are a lot of different variants happening and things like that, but you know what? We just can't stop life. We're just not. So we're on the move and we're just winging it.
Interesting. Stacy, this out and about and keeping it moving. How are you doing with the kids at the school and what's happening there?
So yes, everybody is outside now. So we just have to accept the fact that it's time to move on. I think for us, it's about building community. So now we're just trying to reflect and talk with our incoming parents, our new parents, and our returning parents, and from the format of saying every family has the right to make their own choices about whether you want to be in a mask or not. But when we come together, how do we want to move in this new space to keep each other safe so that we can start seeing the world from not just our perspective, but the perspective of others when we have to come together as community? Because once I put you in the classroom, and once I put you with the teachers, we have to think about things like everybody see that it's a teacher shortage. Everybody see that, we don't have a lot of subs, that's happening across the country. So now as a parent, I would like for you to just be open and think about if you want your child in school because you don't want to homeschool, then what are the compromises that we are willing to make so that we can operate in community? So when you're out and about as a family, I can appreciate and respect whatever choices you make. But let's come together and decide how we're going to operate when we're in school so that we can keep everybody safe.
Keeping everybody safe. It's definitely something that's on the top of everyone's mind. Aisha, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you today?
Doing good. What are you and the fellas up to in your household?
Well, listen, the fellas and I have been traveling. We absolutely have been traveling this summer. We had a lot of things going on, camps, weddings, just regular old vacation. But we've been doing good with that. I think here in our household, the main thing that we try to teach and preach around here is just respect our space, just respect the space. So we're just like everybody else. We're out and about. When we're out, we're not necessarily masking when we're outside, but when we are around a lot of people, we certainly think about the space that we're in and then determine whether or not we're going to go ahead and put those masks on. So over here, we're just living our best lives. We're living normally, just like everybody else. But like I said, we preach and teach respect the space. If the space is too small, mask up. If the space is big enough, then hey, breathe on.
Enough breathe on. I do like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something interesting. You just said this, you're out here living normally. And I'm going to ask Pastor JT this question because even in this pandemic, Pastor, there are so many people who are deciding not to come back to church for reasons related to the variant. But then there are other people who are coming back to church. How is this impacting what you see for clergy in this time of opening or not opening? Because still so many churches are not open. How is that being impacted in congregation life?
To be honest, and hey, Dr. Jacquie, but I will say it's an interesting dynamic, because when you think about church and you think about people coming back into church, it's to me, that has become a problem of sorts because there are a lot of people that have decided not to come. There are a lot of people who are kind of 50-50, and then there are a lot of people that they didn't stop going during the pandemic. Like they were still going to church, even in the city of Houston where we had the numbers, we had the size limits. You could gather, but you couldn't be over 25. And then it went up to 50. And then it started doing like that. Man, you had some pastors who were renegades, we come into the Lord's house. But I think now in this space, and I've heard everybody say, everybody's outside, but the sad part about it is one of the places that I believe everybody should be inside, they're not really there. And, in Houston, it's a foregone conclusion. If any of you ladies, travel and come to Houston, you probably have more people at brunch on Sunday than holding a Bible. So we replaced that 11 o'clock hour with Hallelujah to, DJ spin that again. But it's an interesting dynamic, and I think that point that was just made about normal, I think what we have to do is identify what's your normal and then live from there. Normal will never be 2019. Normal will never be 2019, but there can be a new baseline that is created in 2022 and we live from there. And I believe that your normal suits you. It suits your household. It suits you and your family, and your normal shouldn't impact my normal. If my normal is getting out of my car and not going into a building without my mask, I shouldn't have to worry about the mask haters that look at me funny when I get in, and then vice versa. If I'm out living my life and I have my mask off, I shouldn't feel that I am a little bit more of a daredevil in comparison to the person who's taking life and they're being cautious. And so I just think that that's kind of where everybody is. But in the city of Houston, I was in a meeting last week and actually have a follow-up this week. Our cases are doubling. Our hospitals are seeing more people come in with COVID-related cases over the last 6 weeks than they have this whole year. So, Houston is kind of that on and popping space. And so there's a lot of people that have the thought of, we outside. But then typically when you get outside, you kind of leave your caution inside. And so I think that that's where we see the cases going up, and, we just kind of got to take it one variant at a time.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there when it comes to talking about one variant at a time. As we're talking through this and everyone is trying to establish what their new normal is going to look like, at least in these last few months of this year, because it could very well change in 2023. Dr. Tierney, we talk about trying to put together something that looks like normal. How are you putting normal in for yourself? And then what are some of the normals that you are finding your clients are able to do? Because everyone is in a different space and season when it comes to how they're approaching getting out and about.
Absolutely. Hey, Dr. Jackie, thanks for having me on as always. I echo what everyone has already said. There's really not too much to add to that. But something that my husband and I are very on top of is just making sure that we are being self-aware. So if we have I have really bad allergies, seasonal allergies. So I don't just walk around like, oh, that's just my allergies. It's fine. I don't have COVID. I put a mask on, even though I may not think it's COVID, if I know I'm going around people, just to be mindful and respectful that as I'm sneezing or my eyes are watering, or because all of these symptoms from variant 1 to 57, 32, they all start to kind of look the same. So we don't know if it's seasonal allergies, monkeypox, COVID, flu, a regular cold, like what happened to the regular cold, by the way. But, we don't know what it might be. So we're just very mindful of, if we're, sneezing or not feeling that great, we'll put our mask on, and even we will just kind of do some of that self-quarantining just to be respectful and mindful of other people, and just taking our own temperature. I guess you could say that, pun intended, taking our own temperature first before we just expect everyone to just be okay with whatever our, new normal is, and just being respectful that their new normal may be different than our new normal. So making sure that we're not allowing this to be something that divides us, to something else to be divisive around, and so just making sure that we are taking a pulse check with that. And that's something that I tell my clients all the time, because sometimes we'll get in our own little fiefdoms, we'll put our horse blinders on and just expect everyone to move like we move, and just to respond like we respond. And we're all different, so it's honoring your differences, but also honoring the other person's, as well, and finding those places where we can agree upon and, again, not be divided on.
I think that all of these are great ways for us to help our audience explore where they are. If you're gauging your own temperature, if you will, as to how you're feeling and how you're approaching getting out and establishing some sense of new normal. I guess at this point, it's really safe to say this is a good time as any to go ahead and establish a new normal, because oftentimes we spend a lot of time worrying and thinking about what is, what isn't, what could be, what couldn't be, but we definitely don't take the time to just settle somewhere. So I'm gonna bring everyone back in, and I'm gonna ask you, what is one thing that you would say before we go to our break to help our audience discover a sense of a new normal? Everybody needs to find at least one space in life to hang their hat. And if you had to think about either your personal one or a tip that you would give, what would that be? I'm gonna start with Charlotte.
So for me, I think it would really be just really knowing your routine, right? Because for us, we are a family of habit and routine. And so for me, our family's normal is our routine. And I think that, structure really matters. And so I think you have to really gauge that and find that for yourself. My routine and the structure in my house, I know is completely different than the structure and routine in other people's homes, because we have 9 people who live in this house. So my thing really is knowing your schedule, knowing your structure, and doing what's best for your family.
Absolutely. Pastor JT.
I would agree with Charlotte. I believe that is key, but I believe it starts with a honest conversation. One thing that, not starting preaching already. Y'all forgive me. But Joshua was looking at the landscape of the land. And so there was this, identity crisis. And the children of Israel were looking over the fence and looking at other countries. And they were saying, well, we don't do that. They don't do that. We want to do that. And so then Joshua just said, hey, as for me and my house, this is what we're going to do. And I think that in this moment, that's the first thing. And I believe that that's probably the only thing that even matters, because I think that that's what get us into those areas of division, as Dr. Tierney said, where we are more concerned about what somebody else is doing when our real concern is really what we are going to do or how we're going to do it. And then once we establish that baseline, just kind of have those regular checkups to ensure that everybody is doing what everybody is doing. And I know it's going to be challenging for some that may have smaller children that are going to school. And so now you're telling your child, don't take your mask off unless, you're at lunch. And then now your child may be getting picked on because they are the only child in the school that has, so those things will come. And I think that it probably will take on a different approach in parenting. But I believe that that's one of the best things to do, is just identify that baseline in your home and then make sure that your home governs itself accordingly.
When we come back after the break, I want to jump into something with Dr. Tierney, Stacey Owens, and then also Aisha Pugh, as it relates to how do we help our children navigate the spaces that they are in? Because as we've already stated, when it comes down to things, it's me and them and us. So are we a sense of community, or do we have a sense of division? Because all of our children are going to have to make some decisions as they prepare for back to school when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Over the window seats. These are the only bins that will accommodate larger rollerboards.
They put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you hoop 10.
Oh my God.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. As you can see, Dr. Tierney, Pastor Jacquie, Stacey Owens, Charlotte Avey, and Aisha Pugh have no shortage of a wealth of information that they are sharing with us today. And one of the things that we're facing as we're near getting back to school is, what does this look like for our children? Oftentimes, people have this tendency, and I'm going to use this word, and it's called catastrophizing. And basically what that means is this. We think of a scenario or situation, and before we think of the nice, simple way that a thing could play out, we have this tendency to just blow it up completely out of proportion. And before we know it, we have scared ourselves and really projected fear onto our children and our family members about not pursuing any options at all. So I'd like to talk to you for just a few moments, Aisha, Dr. Tierney, and Stacey, related to that preparation period for people in getting prepared for their next season in life. And then we're going to go to a one-on-one with Charlotte, because she has some very exciting news to share us. Hey, ladies. It's tough sometimes when you think about, I don't want to say motivating children, but kids watch the news. and they hear adults talking and they hear their peers talking, and parents are, literally having conversations in front of their children that should probably be had in private. I want to start with Aisha, because raising sons, you and your husband have a very distinctive way of engaging them and communicating with them about, as you said earlier, about how things are going to happen there at the Pew Ranch. Share with us a little bit about tools and tips and some of that level of engagement that you believe parents could incorporate to live balance going forward.
Absolutely. I think most importantly, especially when dealing with kids during a pandemic, is to recognize their feelings about what's going on. It's so different now being in a pandemic and the kids being in school and then out of school, and then should they wear a mask, even if you tell them, because their friends are not wearing it. We've had to deal with all of those things. And I think the most important thing is to recognize their feelings and to communicate with them about exactly what's happening and what's going on. I also think it's important to help your kids focus on what they can control and what they can't control. We can't control what everybody else is doing. We can't control what's going on in the news, but we have to make sure that we are governing ourselves the way that we need to, so that we're self-aware about what we're doing, just like Dr. Tierney said, checking your own temperature. We definitely talk to our kids about that. If you're coughing, if you're sneezing, then you need to make sure that you're being mindful of, again, the space that you're in. And then sometimes I think it's important just to take a break a little bit. Emotionally, talking about COVID all the time, I think causes a lot of anxiety, or did in the past. And sometimes for some kids, it does still do the same. So I think it's just important to just communicate with your kids again, and just honestly, just being mindful of what their feelings are, and then just communicating with them about how they're feeling, so that, you can help them move forward with what's going on currently.
Absolutely. Feelings can really run the gamut as an adult. I get a little jittery when I'm in a space and people start to get a little too close. And I can just only imagine children not really being able to articulate or say or have the right words, to use, or fear if they move one way, a parent may chastise them. Stacey, there's certain ways that parents need to engage with children when they start to show signs of being uncomfortable and not knowing what to do. How can you help parents establish that line of not only just communication, but what are some of the things that parents should be looking for?
What's the vocabulary level? So we often say that we should communicate and teach kids how to communicate. Let's start by increasing their vocabulary. So most kids can give you the basic feeling words like happy, sad, or mad, right? Let's start teaching kids some additional words to add to those emotional words. And then I like to call it, what's the T? So now that I have the vocabulary, what are some of my triggers? Because when I start feeling some of these new words that you just taught me about, help me to identify what happened to evoke this particular feeling. That's the trigger, right? And then moving on to the E and the T, now attach that to an emotion. This happened and it made me feel like this. And the last part of that T is the A, which is action. What did you do in that moment? Because that's where kids get stuck. It's like, I have a feeling. I really don't know what made me feel like this. And then I had a reaction to the feeling, and I really didn't know how to process through that. So I always tell parents that let's determine the T in this. What's the T? Help kids to be able to talk in a way that makes sense, and also in a way that will allow you to add some additional training to it. So now if your only reaction when you get upset or mad is to have a tantrum or blow up, teach me another way. Teach me another action. Teach me how to identify the things that are in and not in my control. So I call it what's the T.
So let's take what's the T one step further, because, I'm listening to you talk, and literally the moments that I see parents chastising a child for having an emotion, they don't know how to have the appropriate action. So how do we help parents be more sensitive, if you will, to when their children are having a triggered moment? I mean, we can all attest to the times that we've seen a child, see a pet in the grocery store, and the child will jump or flinch, and the parent will say, what are you doing that for? Why are you acting all scared? It's like you just discounted that child's feelings and emotion. So how do we help our parents also discover how to communicate with kids as they are having these heightened senses of awareness?
We have to teach them how to talk through that. So if the child just flinched because, I saw a dog, ask the question, why did that matter? Like my granddaughter is scared of every kind of bug. If a mosquito come in the house, like last night, a mosquito came in the house, and for 10 minutes, I had to listen to her jump up and down, jumping off the bed. She was trying to kill this mosquito. In her mind, she was like, I want this mosquito to be dead before I lay down and go to bed. But she was about to break her neck trying to do it. So I had to stop her, and I had to say, like, well, one, why are you scared of this mosquito? Because you're bigger than this animal. You're bigger than a spider. You're bigger than the mosquito. You're in control of that, but just by your size alone. But as a 6-year-old, she didn't see it or relate to that. So we had to talk about other ways. And then I had to tell her, oh, what's a safer way that you could kill this mosquito other than jumping off your bed and breaking your neck? So it starts with taking that time to get into, to allow them to share what their thought process was, because it made sense. I don't blame her. You want to kill the mosquito before you go to sleep, because in her mind, she didn't want to get bit. So now let's give them a better way to act. We have to stop and think through it. But sometimes as a parent, we also have to think about, why do we react like that? Why did that bother us? What's the trigger? What was the trigger that I got from that? Because I know for me, it was the stomping and the falling. And that was a trigger for me because I was ready for things to settle down. But instead of getting out of control of my emotion when she triggered me, I had to stop and first ask myself, what is she doing right now that's bothering me? Why am I bothered? Let me identify that and then fix it for myself. And now let me go over and speak with her to see if I can help her think through it. Because everything ends with the ability to be able to have a cognitive thought to fix whatever you're trying to fix.
It's very insightful, because as we're talking about how we balance our own emotions, oftentimes we don't necessarily pay attention to what our children are doing or how we're responding and reacting. And all of this ties into being able to discover a sense of balance and giving yourself, vocabulary words and space and time to be able to navigate this new world in which we're living in. Dr. Tierney, navigating this new world that we're living in, it literally is seeming that it's not for the faint of heart. And what I mean by that is some people are literally just saying, I just don't want to go out anymore. I don't want to engage with people anymore. Can you explain why having that sense of moving to this other end of the spectrum is difficult and probably is not the best way to discover how to live a balanced life? Escapism oftentimes is not the best way to move your life forward when seeking a new normal.
Absolutely. And you just said it right there. If the goal is to move forward, then we can't move in the opposite direction, nor can we stand still. So I love, Stacey, I absolutely love what you said about the tea. Because sometimes we can become too focused on trying to spill the tea that we need to sit down and drink the tea. And we need to sit with ourselves to say, okay, what's happening with me? Why am I feeling this? So oftentimes when people want to run to the other end of the spectrum, it's out of a fear response that they haven't themselves sat down to address, to understand, to take action and work through. So I'm just going to respond to what I'm feeling on the surface. And that means I need to stop. I need to halt. I need to go in the opposite direction. But then, and it may work in a temporary, because now I don't feel whatever that press, stress, whatever that was. But what you're ultimately doing is setting yourself up to get stuck. And if what we're trying to do now is identify our new normal, we are unable. Think about it this way. You don't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror. You have to look through the windshield to look forward. And so what we're finding ourselves doing is we're looking in our rearview mirror of how things were in 2019, what I used to do in 2017, what my life looked like in 2010, expecting to bring that into 2022, 23, 24. And it doesn't work that way, sugar. You have to be open and really flexible with what life is now to identify what your new normal is now, understanding that it will never look like that again. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be good. That doesn't mean that, there's not great things on the horizon. But if you're constantly looking in the rearview mirror at what was, you will not see the horizon. And you are more prone to run aground instead of getting to your next level. So I love again, Stacey, what you said about the T, because that acronym that she laid out for, how to better support your children, you have to do it for yourself first. you have to be all of that for yourself first in order to show up for your children in that way. It first starts with you.
I love that idea that you have to show up for yourself first before you show up for your children. And I want to talk to Charlotte Avery for just a second, because, you know, a lot of you parents are in that space of your kids going to school for the first time. Some of your kids are moving to different grade levels. And as children graduate from one stage to another, so does the anxiety that comes along with that process. Charlotte Avery, you, my darling, are in the space of, you know, getting ready to become an empty nester. Can you talk with us for just a moment about your initial thoughts and feelings? And then when we come back after the break, I want to dive into a deeper conversation with you about transition. I would have to say that you probably do some things better than any person that I have ever met. So let's talk about you first before we talk about the kids. How are you processing change?
I'm taking it one day at a time. I mean, knowing that, so, you know, when you said I was an empty nester, getting ready to be an empty nester, I'm like, no, only one's leaving the nest, and we still have six left. We still have six left to go. But you know, I mean, it's really a process on every part of me, on my emotions, on, you know, and I even feel it like even in my physical body, because I'm like, wow, my oldest is leaving and going to college. And to know that we've all been this family unit together in this house for, you know, 18 years of his life. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, like Lim is really leaving and going to college. And, you know, unless we just were going to pump the brakes and be like, no, you're staying home, you know, he's leaving. And so it's something that I have to adjust to. It's something that even some of our children are making adjustments. I know we had a party for him, and one of my children was just like she was in her room during the party lamenting, and the fact that, oh my gosh, my brother's leaving and going to college. And for me, like I'm processing daily, but then I'm looking at him and how he's just, you know, navigating, and how he's trying to now, you know, get the last fun of summer in with his friends and all of that. And it's a tough space. Like, I mean, I have my moments where I'm really lamenting because I already know that, I mean, he's not even gone, and I miss him. I miss him already. I miss his crazy foolishness, and I miss all of his shenanigans. And he's still here in the house. And so, you know, just, you know, processing it all and just making sure, you know, have I and have his dad, you know, have we done everything in these 18 years? Have we taught him the things that he needed to know as he navigates manhood and being, you know, an African-American male out in the world away from our home? And, you know, my answer to that is we have, to the best of our ability. And so I feel confident in that. But also knowing that, you know, as he's leaving the nest now, you know, he has to, you know, live his life. And I'm praying that he'll make right choices and wise decisions at all times. And then just, you know, giving him the grace to make mistakes, and giving myself, you know, the grace that, you know, if he does make mistakes, to recognize, you know what, I used to be one time in his shoes, but also, you know, for me to feel every emotion and just really feel it all, so that I can be true to myself. You know, because I tell you, you know, talking about transition, this whole school year was a major transition. He graduated from high school, and then my number 5 is going from elementary school to middle school, and then my middle schooler is going to high school. So like we had 3 different kinds of graduations, and I'm just like, wow, like it's just crazy to know that all of these things are happening in, you know, in different seasons of everybody's life. And I mean, I'm thankful, I'm blessed. And yet at the same time, I will be honest and say I have my moments of lamenting. And I'm okay. And I'm okay with that.
And I actually like that. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk a little bit about balancing change when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, We are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. I want to talk to Charlotte Avery, Pastor JT, and Aisha Pugh for just a few moments about balancing change, because I think in all of our lives, as we think about it, it's just a series of progressions. But when we say that word change, everyone literally almost loses their mind, as if, you know, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort, when honestly, every day, throughout each day, we're making some form of change. Aisha, Charlotte, and Pastor JT, welcome. You know, Charlotte, I love what you were saying about this. You said the word you said was talk about transition, and it was almost like an exclamation point went at the very end, you know, of what you said. But when you're talking about levels of transition, and you and Aisha are going to have some things in common, you know, as your kids are going to the same college. And, you know, I wanted to ask Aisha, because you are where your oldest left the nest, and there was one still home, and now Charlotte's oldest is leaving the nest. What are some of the tips that you would give to a parent who is getting ready to experience their child leaving for college?
So it's really, honestly and truthfully, no easy way to let them go. I'm just going to be so honest with you. I went through every single emotion that she's stating that she went through. I went through that way prior to him even graduating. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh no, because I only have 2 kids, right? But it doesn't get easier. Even if you have 6 or 2 or 1, they're your babies. So the most important thing that you can really do is just try to prepare for the adjustment. It's going to be an adjustment. You're going to have that slight missing piece to your family. So the most important thing is to just talk to your baby, to try to get your baby prepared. And then, just like earlier when Dr. Tierney said, sometimes you have to take care of yourself. So you have to make sure that mom is okay with letting her baby go. You have to sit down and talk to yourself and say, listen, self, now this baby got to go. I have taught this baby everything that they need to know to prepare them to go to college. So I think you just have to just kind of, you know, pray about it, because it's going to be an adjustment, and prepare for what that new routine in the household is going to look like. And it's going to take it's going to be a day-by-day process. Let me tell you, it is definitely going to be a day-by-day process. But just take your time and just kind of prepare and just kind of talk your way through it and kind of pray your way through it, because it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
Pastor JT, does it get any easier? Because your kids are out the house, yes?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess I probably have to put my wife on this call, because for me, I'm good.
Oh my God.
But to be honest with you, you know, I think that my issues are a little bit different, because I have 2 Black young men in the world that are not under my roof. My issues are a little bit different, you know, so daddy is always concerned about, you know, where are you? What time are you getting home? Who are you with? You know, and so those are my things, you know, because of where we are in the world and the climate that we are in, you know. So mine is not so much from the nurturing standpoint, you know, it's more from that protective standpoint. So now, you know, them being in my house, eating up all my food, this summer was so amazing. I did not have to go to the grocery store as much as I normally would have. It has been great. I mean, I mean, now they hit me up, you know, wanting me to bless their Cash App quite frequently. But other than that, it's fine.
I think that's interesting. So listening to the 3 of you talk, there is definitely a different approach and perspective. And I won't say a level of fear, but areas of fear and concern or trepidation that you come to, whether you're a mom or a dad, and if you're sending a girl or a boy out into the world. Charlotte, when you think about your firstborn leaving the nest, and you talked a little bit about how prepared he is for the world, I won't say that all kids are guarded, but what are some of the things that you're giving your son tip to watch out for as he, prepares to step out into the world on his own?
So, I'm here trying to get myself together with all of my tears and stuff, because everything that Aisha said, I feel it, fully. Right. But just in preparation, just safety, always knowing where you're going, because he's going to be away from home. My thing is, you've got to have your location on your phone so we know where you are. And, being respectful of people and their differences. He's going to have a roommate. I mean, he's had a room to himself for so long. So, even just respecting the differences between himself and his roommate, and being, he's always played sports. So, being a team player when it's necessary, being wise, with money and things like that, because, we told our son, when school got out, once he graduated, we were like, son, any money that you take to school with you is going to be money that you worked for. So, are we teaching him to be wise with his money and how to budget and all of these different things? So, I mean, it's just so many things. And even in dealing, with the opposite sex and all of that, going to school and, how to handle that. And, it's just a lot. It's a lot of things. It's all the spiritual things and all the practical things. It's a lot.
I can only imagine. And with the time that we have left in this segment, something that each of you said was character. And I'm going to ask each of you, what role does character play and how valuable and important is it for that to go with your child to college? Aisha?
My character is absolutely important because, that's going to kind of tell people a little bit about who you are. And you want to make sure that your character is something that's going to represent you. So it's definitely something that you want your kids to be aware of, how they're presenting themselves. And especially, as the pastor said, I have, young Black men as well. So it's important that they present themselves and that their character is definitely moral, because I want people to respect them, as people, as a person, and especially as, young men growing up and being out in the community. So it's very important.
Absolutely. Pastor JT.
Yes, ma'am. It is extremely important. And I would say to any parent, that time is going to come. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go. So your responsibility now is to be loading the train, because at some point that train is going to leave the station. But you can rest assured when you know that you have invested as much as you possibly can, and then to grow their character to be upstanding and to be moral as they leave. Because when they step out of that house and go to a college campus, that college campus is full of people that's trying to recruit on every level. But if that character is strong, they will know who they are, and they will return back to you with a degree and not anything less.
Oh, my goodness. So when we come back after the break, I want to have just a conversation with everybody, because, when we talk about character, developing a new normal and getting out again and being around people, our children have had 2 years of being under someone's roof, and they have literally been guarded and shielded and sheltered from some of the trials and tribulations that this world has to offer. When we come back after the break, let's talk about it.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And I invite all of our guests in because, as I think about some of our children that have been guarded and shielded and have not really had an opportunity or a time to engage with the world. Let's go with that term. Engage with the world. There's some things that our kids need to know that they possibly were not taught because they've been at home playing video games or at someone's house. They've been everywhere except for out in these city streets. So let's have a conversation about balancing city streets, y'all, because, it's just one of those conversations that we haven't had to have in a little while now. And so people are going back to school. They're going back to sporting activities. They're going to concerts. They're hanging out with their friends at Starbucks and Chick-fil-A and just back at the mall. Can you believe the mall is back to being a hangout? And so when we talk about giving our kids the freedom and the flexibility that they need to just discover how to be young people out in the world, I'm going to start with Dr. Tierney because, what's a good baseline, if you will, to begin to share or talk to our children about what it means to have privilege, to be out without one of us with them?
Well, so I'm going to preface this by saying, I know I ain't got no kids, so don't at me, tweet, I know I don't have any children, but I was once a child. And I got a mama. Shout out, mama. Hey, mama. How you doing, mama? She's going to love this segment because it's all the things that she would say that I hated that she said, but she was right. And she would always say, Tierney, you need both book sense and street sense. I'll have your back, but you need to have your front. My mom was tough. Like she did not, what she would tell me frequently, this my stuff. You ain't work for this stuff. You better go get your own stuff, and it made me tough. Now, how can I say this? I had everything that I ever wanted, needed. She was an excellent provider. I went to the best school. Shout out to the U. She made sure that if I showed up and did my part, she absolutely did her part, but she let me know at the gate that this was a partnership. She didn't shelter me. She didn't shield me from anything. We had tough conversations about everything from money to sex, to boys, to God, to you better be tithing. And I could tell when you're not tithing, to let me see your bank ledger and make sure that you ain't overdrafted and you finna go right up there to that bank and have this conversation with them, to everything, so that by the time I got ready to go to college, I wasn't caught off guard. I wasn't surprised. So like, my brother, Pastor JT said, it was a lot of recruiting going on campus, but I was ready. I knew what it sounded like. I knew what to look like. I knew, how many drinks was one drink too much. I knew when that little guy was running game. I knew everything that I needed to know at 18 so that I can go out and, as Pastor JT said, get my degree and nothing less. So I think there has to be a balance where we realize that we are training up adults. Yes, they're children, but you can't shield them too much. You can't shelter them too much. You have to let them in on some of the conversations in an appropriate way, and watch their maturity level to make sure that when they are out there flying on their own and you kick them out the nest, they are ready to soar and not have to, fall back into the nest.
Absolutely. Stacey.
I would add on to that by saying, we have to start early with teaching children how to recognize what they are feeling within themselves. What does any situation you're in, what does it look like, sound like, feel like? And once I start identifying that, then I can impose what I call the AAA. How can I assess? I'm standing here talking to somebody. I'm listening to what others are saying to me and around me. How is that making me feel? Do I feel safe? Do I feel like this is a good space to be in? I think kids today, sometimes when we have to socialize with others, they miss certain social cues. They miss certain opportunities that can help them to know how to make decisions, to know I'm going too far this way or I'm going too far this way. They become so entitled or privileged where they think that it's the responsibility of someone else to help guide you and hold your hand. And we got to start giving them the tools that they need so that they can tap into their intuition and know that in this assessment or in this moment, I'm okay. Well, I'm not okay. And then take action. If you're not okay, do I know how to seek help? Do I know who to go to and ask for help from? Do I know how to remove myself from the situation? I see a lot of kids today stay in stuff too long, stay in friendships too long, stay in trying to make something work that you clearly see is not working because we have that fear of failing at something. And then that last A in the AAA is, how do I adjust? So we got to teach children how to think through what they are feeling, why I'm feeling that, and what do I need to do with it. That's what I would say with kids with me.
I love those AAAs. I may have to adopt some of those myself as I move on into adulthood, because that is exactly what we're doing. Pastor JT.
Yes, ma'am.
One tip that you would share for people learning how to balance moving forward and being out on their own, because kids today can be a little wild. Don't at me, y'all. I'm just saying, I see y'all. I'm just saying, I see y'all.
Well, you know what? That AAA was dope. Stacy, I'm giving you props now. I'm going to say it again on some other platform, but assess, action, and adjust. The last thing that I would say, I'm going to go back to that response that I had earlier about training up that child. It was on, I think, one of the Madeira shows. I think Brown was talking about when he was at the pool and he was just teeling, toweling, and then somebody just pushed him in. Our children will never really know if they are able to fly if we are the reasons that their wings are clipped. You have to trust what you have invested in them. And if you know that you have invested gold in them, you'll never have to worry about anything turning green.
Invest the goal so you won't have to worry about anything turning green. If y'all didn't catch that, he was saying don't live a fake life, because life's too short for all that, because everything that's gold is not real gold. So, I think that all of these tips and keys that we have heard today are extremely important, and they give us this opportunity to really showcase as adults how to help our children not only shine, but to soar. As we continue in who we are and what we do, our aim is always to provide our audience with tools and tips, to help you either move away from or move toward what you see is right for you in a balanced life. I'll give my reflection when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now. We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. Charlotte Avery, Pastor JT, Stacey Owens, Dr. Tierney, and Aisha Pugh have given us some tools and tips in this show that will allow us to really figure out how to navigate our lives. But in addition to navigating our lives, trust me, more is caught than taught. our children are watching us. So I'm imploring you to get you together first so that you can then begin to aid and guide your children as they navigate this world. Each of our children are moving into spaces such as graduating and going to different grade levels, whether it's elementary school to middle school to high school to college. But also within that, we're giving them space now that we're coming through this pandemic to go to camps, to vacation Bible school, to get their first jobs, to have opportunity to really showcase that they are amazing young people. So as we begin to continue these conversations and dialogue throughout the rest of our time, make certain that you are opening up these levels of conversation in your home so that your child, that the people that you love will know how to live a balanced and almost as close to as possible stress-free life. Thank you all for joining us today. Bye now.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?